Ayan na, ayan na. Kamusta naman kayo dyan? Yan, ayan. New York, concrete jungle. Yan, talagang, katulad ng sinabi natin guys, the other day, this is it. Mamdani. Zohran, hindi Zohan, Zohran Mamdani, 33 years old, born in Uganda, 2018 yata siya naging US citizen, and here we are, Mamdani as the frontrunner, or some would even say almost mayor-elect, kasi alam naman natin ang New York guys is a democratic dominated place, so usually whoever is the standard bearer of the Democratic Party is expected to become the ultimate victor, although of course the incumbent Mayor Adams is also running, and then of course there's the Republican candidate. Let's see, of course crazy things could happen, but as of this speaking, and if historical trends hold, whoever is the Democratic Party standard bearer is very much expected to become the ultimate mayor of New York City. Ayan, and with that, we're seeing an explosion of all sorts of different memes, but also very unfortunate prejudicial, no? Kung ano ng mga major bigotry, among others, because of course, the background of Mamdani. If anyone is aware about Mamdani, he comes from a very secular, academic, cosmopolitan family, and that's why wala siyang problema in terms of adjusting to different cultures. One day he's in a Sikh place of worship. He has developed a very strong relationship with the Jewish community, and of course, not to mention of course with the Latino community, with the South Asian community. At sabi nga nila, dahil kay Mamdani ngayon, lahat ng mga Asian kids, lalo mapapressure sila. Tingnan mo nga si Mamdani, 33 years old pa lang, papunta na siya sa pagiging mayor, alcalde ng basically the financial center of the world. Last time I checked, New York is still the hub, the heart of global capitalism. More than $100 billion in budget annually. We're talking about a city with tens of thousands of bureaucrats. So big deal yan, guys. For someone at a very relatively young age, more than 10 years to 12 years younger than the youngest ever mayor in New York's history. I think the youngest one we had in the past was 48 years old. So for a 33, 34 years old person to make it as a mayor, and someone with such a cosmopolitan and most importantly progressive socialist background, someone who's unabashed on his take, whether on the Gaza conflict, whether on the Modi Hindutva politics, or whether on matters of American foreign policy. So let's see. And of course, katulad ng sinabi natin, what happens in New York does not stay in New York. What happens in New York could set the tone for the direction of the democratic politics, national politics in the United States, but more importantly also internationally. Nakikita natin people from all around the world, people from immigrant background, people who are not even based in the United States or don't have a direct connection in the United States. They're looking at the case of Mamdani and saying how someone goes from zero to Zohran, basically by developing a very robust grassroots mobilization technique. Naalala ko not long ago, sinasabi nila na napaka-cringe naman tong tao. Remember, he had this video, I think last year ba yan, about freezing yung rent sa New York because New York is very expensive. Sanabi niya something along the lines of actually tumalon siya sa isang freezing river dyan sa New York just to make a point. This is winter time, right? And yung mga ibang tao nag-cringe sa kanya, ano to, epal naman to, ano ginagawa niya? And next thing you know, he kept on building momentum, and I think that there's a lot to learn really from that story. As I said, you may agree with the guy, you may disagree with the guy, you may be, I don't know, anti-socialist, conservative, I don't know, fascist, whatever you are. The point here, guys, is it was an amazing electoral success. It was a remarkable electoral success, as Rohana, one of the Democratic leaders, put it. The secret to success is that if you're not scared to lose, you have a great chance. I mean, if you're brave enough to risk losing, right? And if you're not scared to lose, then you're going to be authentic, you're going to take a strong stance, and eventually that is what's going to make you stand out in the crowd and project authenticity and all, diba? So, you know, Bernie Sanders did not become a president, but one reason why he's such a national force, you know, Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, and yes, on the other side of this on the other side of the fence, Donald Trump, right? If you look at all of these people, one thing they have in common is not obviously their ideology, which is almost diametrically opposed, pero itong unabashed authenticity and, you know, this is it, real talk style of politics. So sa aking palagay, pag-aralan natin na mabuti. And to be honest, I'm you know, kailangan din natin pag-aralan na, you know, we already talked about the case of PETA in Thailand. We have been talking about Vico Sotto forever. I talked about even the case of right-wingers who I completely disagree with, you know, Marine Le Pen people, you know, National Front, for instance. Hindi na pala National Front, Popular, whatever. In the case of France, you know, the TikTok videos they would do, the right-wing populists, left-wing populists, Mélenchon in the case of France. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, for instance, look at the videos here.
I'll make buses fast and free.
So I can just
Cool,
get
diba?
where I'm going.
I'll make childcare available to all New Yorkers at no cost.
I want to raise my kid in New York.
And I'll freeze the rent for every single rent-stabilized tenant.
These Eric Adams rent hikes are killing us.
Life in this city doesn't need to be this hard. But politicians like Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo want it to be this way. They care about their donors. They care about themselves. They don't care about you, the working class who keep this city running. This campaign is for every New Yorker who believes in the dignity of their neighbors. And the government's job is to actually make our lives better. We can afford to bring down the rent, have world-class public transit, and make it easier to raise a family. We can do all of that, and so much more. Because this is New York. We can afford to dream.
Buyaka siya, diba guys? I think we can do something similar, right? I mean, not only in terms of vlogs and all. I think this is something. This is the way. I think this is really the way. Kung gusto natin to reach out to Gen Zs, to millennials, to the younger generation of folks. I mean, Zohran is also kind of an older millennial, right? Medyo magpapunta ng mid-30s to, so older millennial yan. But you can see, guys, I think this is really the way forward. You talk about social issues, pag-usapan mo yung mga komplikadong issue, controversial issues, pero you do it in a very authentic, unapologetic way. At saka yung focus dapat dun sa mga gut issues, economic issues, hindi masyadong but that's the thing, right? At the same time, nakikita mo andun talaga yung kanyang clear projection ng kanyang very diverse identity, you know, in his you know, what he wears, how he projects himself, different people he talks to. So andun lahat, diba? Andun lahat. But at the same time, guys, we're also looking here in terms of, you know, the messaging, which is not focused on identity politics per se, although he embodies, similar to Obama, a kind of cosmopolitanism and kind of a multiracial, post-racial politics. But also what's important here, guys, ang tinitignan din dito is how you focus on issues na malapit sa puso ng tao. Alright? Malapit sa puso ng tao. Para mainis na naman itong mga troll na to. Okay, and that's why, guys, I'm saying, you know, if you look at the rise and rise of whether it's Zohran or PETA or all sorts of different peoples across the world, especially the more young, progressive ones, ito yung mga tao na only a few months ago no one knew about them. Right? Ito yung mga tao na really, dati nagka-cringe ang tao, akala na epalan ng tao, next thing you know, here we are, diba? A kind of a global inspiration even. So, having said that, kaya nga sabi ko nung isang araw, wag natin kalimutan na pwede rin gawin ito sa Pilipinas. Again, who would have thought na si Bam Aquino would be, I don't know, number 2, right? Pagdating sa Senate. Who would have thought that Kiko could make it back in style, right? Who would have thought, I mean, on the other side of the equation for, you know, Bongo number 1 was quite expected, but Mark Colette at number 6 or whatever, right? So, and who would have thought na yung mga artista na akala nila easy peasy yan, you know, it's a cakewalk. Next thing you know, purong talo, right? Yung mga akala nila na yung isa nga, number 1 pa nga siya back in 2010, ngayon barely top 14, 15. So what I'm saying, guys, here is we have to be open to possibilities and being part of open. I mean, and kasama dyan yung not fearing to hope for a better future. Kasama dyan is not fearing to be embarrassed or not fearing to be made fun of when you try to, medyo pakut here and there, but actually public policy focus, right? medyo siguro nag-cringe yung iba sa'yo. Ano tong epal na to, sinito, all over the place. Pero okay lang yan. Just keep on going. Just keep on going. It's that kind of tenacity, guys. That's something that is very, very important. At kitang-kita natin yan in the case of Zohran, in case of, I mean, if you watch Pita, for instance, in the case of Thailand, I'll show you some of his pictures. Like, sobrang daling ma-cringe. Like, ano to? Parang pa-cute to? Anong vlogger ba to? But, guys, it worked. I'll show you some pictures of para makita nyo bakit yung ibang tao nakaka-cringe. This is Pita, right? This is Pita in the case of Thailand. Alright? Pita, Ferrari. So, you know, like, clearly pa-influencer, pa-pogi, pa-GQ feel, right? And yet, you know, and yet, right? And yet, he was able to connect to actually the youth and the middle class. Not because, right? Not because sabi ng tao, because may Ferrari siya, let's vote for that person. And may Ferrari din siya, di ba? Yung si Sanderford. Ay, sino yung tumakbong makers? Ay, Maserati pala yung tumakbong. No, that's not the point. The point is, hindi nila pinilit na maging mukhang something na hindi sila. Basically, hindi sila Maro style, yung mga nagpapadyak-padyak, yung trying hard na kunyari masa. No, don't do that, right? And honestly, yung mga picture ng iba na natulog sa bus station, mga ganun, like, you know, I'm all for humility, I'm all for, you know, ako, proud Baguio boy, sometimes nagbabus ako pauwing Baguio, or bus ako pauwing Manila, okay, no big deal, but I'm not gonna, you know, like, there's no point in overemphasizing that. So, you see, diba, easily pwede ka ma-turn off sa taong to, and kasi, napaka-hypocrite yung tao na to, because he was pushing for universal basic income, or at least increasing minimum wage, more labor rights, more equality, more, you know, higher taxes sa mga mayayaman. And then Pita was able to pull it off because, you know, okay, so what kung anak mayaman, ito talagang totong konyo na to, diba? Or businessman to. Well, guess what? He worked for it. He earned it on his own, right? Nag-aaral siya, I'm not sure whether it was in Harvard or Oxford. I think it was in Harvard, nag-MBA yata siya or something like that, or MPP, and kailangan niya umuwi sa Thailand because parang medyo nalulugi na yung business ng tatay niya. So he revived that business. He became self-made or re-self-made rich. And then from there, he worked it into politics, and he didn't pretend to be anything else. So that's what I'm saying. Like, things that we thought will not work before, things that we thought would turn off voters, things that we thought na medyo epal, cringy, hard sell, pa-cute. Actually, if you back it up with certain, you know, authentic, consistent, and heartfelt public policy advocacy, eventually makikita ng tao yan, and they're gonna give you credit for that. Especially, again, as I said, the younger voters, especially mga more progressive sections or more open-minded section of the public. And as I said, pagdating sa Pilipinas, if you look at the political literature, my term na ang tawag dyan is ambivalence, ideological ambivalence, or democratic ambivalence. Marami sa ating mga kababayan ay, in fact, I think Roosevelt or FDR talked about this also back in the day. The idea that it's not like people lose faith in democracy per se, which is the freedom to choose your leaders. People lose faith in you know, failing systems that pretend to be democracy but actually in reality do not provide you the basics. Whether ito yung housing, ito yung food security, whether ito yung employment security, minimum wage, so on and so forth, right? So, it's not that people have lost faith in democracy, it's just that we really did not create a real democracy. So, ang solusyon dyan is not to push for an authoritarian dictatorial system. Ang solusyon dyan is to make our democracy work for the average folks, right? And not only for average folks, also for the middle class. Di ba? Napaka-overtax yung ating middle class. Di ba? Ang laki ng kaltas pag ikaw middle class. You know, kunyari, teacher ka, kumita ka na 60-70K, pero ang uwi mo lang, makano lang, 30 plus na lang after kaltas ng everything. So, what I'm saying here, guys, is this, that wait lang, parang mahina yata daw ang boses natin. Ano bang problema nito? Ngayon, mas okay ba yung boses natin? Bakit kaya? I'm using kasi my iPad eh. Ano, gumagamit ba yan? Can you hear me? Hindi, okay kayo dito sa YouTube. I don't know anong problema. Ulitin natin to. Wait lang.